A very good evening, viewers. My name is Sharan Setty, and I'm your host for Swarajya interviews. Joining me today for a conversation is Maj Gen Harsha Kakar. Sir, thank you so much. Namaste, sir. A very good evening to you.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very well, sir. Very good to see you on the other side of the screen once again. And thank you for extending this privilege of speaking to us.
Absolutely my pleasure.
So, first of all, how do you react to Yasin Malik's sentencing? Because it has taken 32 years to get here. What took India so long?
See, basically, what happened was a change in perception as far as governments were concerned. There was a belief by the earlier governments that he was an individual who could be exploited to bring about peace in the valley. So, with that consideration, he was given all due, he was given all regard, and whatever crimes he had committed were being overlooked. At the same time, he was exploiting the scenario, exploiting the situation, enhancing militancy, playing both sides. And while people knew that he was playing both sides, they were unwilling to act. It was finally a firm and hard decision by a government which decided that it needs to resolve the issue. It needs to get after those who've been playing both sides, those who've been exploiting the situation. And that is why Yasin Malik was amongst the first to be targeted. And whatever crimes he committed decades ago had to be brought to an end. And I guess the fall that he faced when he was sentenced yesterday, the expression on his face, the loss of every possible hope, the loss of the power that he possessed, I think that says it all.
In that sense, this political patronage that Yasin Malik enjoyed has actually delayed the process of justice for a lot of people. And even right now, after the abrogation of Article 370 and a lot of moves in Kashmir, India has changed a lot of strategies from time to time to make sure that the entire political issue is settled over there. But after Yasin Malik's sentencing, we still hear about a lot of stone pelting incidents. How do you react to that?
See, these are incidents that will happen in the sense he's got his followers. Today, you send the police to pick up any political authority in India, any political figure, even someone who's not part of the government in any state. There will be certain amount of reaction from his local supporters, and these are spontaneous reactions. Are you hearing any reports of it today? There's nothing coming on. It happened yesterday, and it was a spontaneous reaction. At the same time, there were celebrations by a section of society outside his place. So it was both sides. So if you shouldn't be reading it as such, because in the part from which he belonged, fearing that there would be violence, people closed down their shops. The shops were not shut in order to sort of protest against Yasin Malik, but it was to prevent violence from being spread in that area. The rest of the valley, there was nothing. People were least bothered. Everyone went around their normal routines. So he had over the years lost the sort of support and the hold that he had. And I guess all this were steady moves being made by the government before they could finally act.
And do you think this punishment could have been any stricter? Because a lot of Kashmiri pundits, especially, were demanding for that, and they were hoping that this would go beyond just a life sentencing.
There are still cases pending. There are still to come to court. The serious cases have yet got to come. This was money laundering, action against terrorism against the state, supporting terrorism against the state, being a member of a terrorist group. It were these cases. And in this, if this is what he's got, there's a lot more. You've got to realize that had he not accepted his guilt, a lot more would have come out in front of the judiciary, in front of the judge. The fact that he accepted his guilt is possibly what pushed him. But I guess spending whatever little
Right.
balance of life he's got behind bars is even worse because had it been the death punishment, he could have been considered as a martyr, not now.
Right. I mean, in that sense, there are a lot of human right groups which have been activated again, fearing that there would be a death sentencing.
Those things are bound to happen. You've got Pakistan jumping, you've got various other groups jumping.
Yeah,
It's their job to jump, and it's our job to ignore. We have to do what the Indian judiciary feels is correct. After all, we have an independent judiciary which is not governed by anyone else.
right.
And if it feels that this is what is the correct punishment, well, so be it. Those groups can keep jumping. Who's worried about kangaroos jumping around for no reason all over the countryside?
And do you actually think that the militancy can prolong, or is this the last leg of the battle for India in Kashmir?
See, what you're seeing today is a level which has come down to targeting the innocent, trying to create panic. Now, this is a leg which is going to be very difficult to conclude. It's not something, where you are facing a person armed with a weapon and you're able to handle it. The fact that terrorists are afraid to get into encounters with security forces, the fact that they're running to just stay alive, indicates that the militancy is receding. Now, these targeted killing of innocents is the shortcut procedure which militants adopt when everything else fails, just to indicate that they still have a presence in the region. This is going to take time because this is going to be more of moving into the population, convincing the population against uh, the stupidity of adopting this policy. This is going to take time. But yes, if you look at the power of the militancy, it's almost gone.
And going ahead, what do you think are the challenges that India has to deal with, especially if it plans the next part of its strategy, which is to probably reintegrate POJK?
See, POJK, please don't link that with anything else. That's a very different part. For us, what we are concerned about at the moment, we've already integrated JNK with us. There's a lot of change in mindset. There's a lot of change in commonality in the sense that the earlier faith or belief that we are JNK and you've come from India, that has vanished. The schemes that have been introduced into JNK have changed minds of people. It's brought about a sort of integration which was not there. With investment coming into the state, with education institutions opening, the feeling that the state is now going to do well is going to bring about a possible, to a large extent, an amalgamation into the rest of the country. So that is where we've achieved. And let's first bring our portion, bring that region into a level of prosperity where the rest of the country is, bring it up to a level of education integration to where the rest of the country is. Once we've
Right.
done our portion, then let's look ahead.
So that's the economic rehabilitation, perhaps, which is slowly opening up. Businesses are booming now, and the freedom and liberties that Kashmiris once enjoyed, perhaps they can be hopeful that it will be restored today because things are under control. But what about the political rehabilitation of the people? Is what a lot of people are asking, General Kakar.
At the moment, the delimitation is over. So once it's accepted by the government, you would have the elections announced. In fact, everyone's expecting it to be held sometime this year. You've already begun politics at the grassroots level by organizing the district development council elections. A lot of changes have come in, a lot of improvements have been done, and the state and the union territory would possibly be reconverted to a state the moment we have the state elections, which would be due sometime since the delimitation report has been submitted. So all are expecting it to be held sometime this year.
Amid all the other news about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and the Bollywood movies getting released, we actually forgot about the delimitation exercise. That was the report that was actually presented. So I'm really glad that you brought it up. So, what is the significance of this? Because I believe that there has not been a lot of discussion, especially on the delimitation report.
See, that's a political discussion which will invariably take place.
Right.
And politically, anything done by one government will always be objected by the government in power, will always be objected to by the opposition. Their logic on some aspects would be looked at, some the government would have its own belief. And when it appoints a commission, it looks for neutrals, and it hopes that the neutrals will produce what is largely acceptable to the majority. And the fact that they've done it and they've given it, the objections have not been so major that you would find the public standing up against it. The objections have only come from political parties in bits and pieces. So I guess to a large extent it has been acceptable. And let us see when the government accepts it and announces elections. It should do so before October, before the winter sets in, where a block comes in for a few months in the conduct of elections.
So, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you've had a very busy day, and it really means a lot to us and our viewers whenever they hear you speak.
My pleasure, totally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Viewers, you just heard what Major General Harsha Kakar had to say about Yasin Malik's sentencing, the Kashmir Delimitation Report, and a lot of other related subjects. The only way that we get to know that you're supportive of us is by showing that you're subscribed to Swarajya. We are putting in a lot of effort to renew, to rebrand, and to produce content that will be of interest on several different issues in India and around the world. Please do let us know what you thought about this particular video and what you would like to see on our channel even more. We will engage with you very constantly and take your feedback very constructively. And in return, the only thing that we would request you to do is to click on the bell icon and click on subscribe and stay tuned for more such conversations in the future.